Dr. Kim Hannah wiped the sweat from her forehead as she stood in the shadow of the massive stone wall. The alien sun above Kepler 442c burned bright and hot, making the work difficult for the human research team. She had been studying old ruins across the galaxy for 10 years, but nothing had prepared her for what they found on this distant world. "Professor Lee, come look at this," she called to her team leader, her voice filled with confusion. The older man walked over, his boots crunching on the strange, purple sand that covered this planet. Behind him, the other team members continued their careful work, using small brushes and electronic tools to slowly uncover more of the ancient structure. The ruins stretched as far as they could see across the valley. Massive towers and buildings, made from some kind of smooth black stone that seemed to shine in the sunlight. The walls were covered with intricate patterns and symbols that hurt to look at for too long. Everything about the place felt wrong, like it didn't belong on this world or maybe in this time. "The dating results came back from the lab," said Dr. Yoon Kyungmin, the team's science expert, holding up his electronic tablet. His face looked pale and worried. "These ruins are 2.8 million years old. It's older than any civilization we know about in the galaxy." Park Gina, the youngest member of their team, stopped her work and stared at him. "That can't be right. The Zephyrians are supposed to be the oldest space-traveling race, and they only go back 1.5 million years. Professor Lee Minho rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He had been studying alien cultures for longer than anyone else on the team, and he had never seen anything like this. The construction was too perfect, too advanced for something so old. Stones fit together without any gaps, and there were no signs of the primitive tools that should have been used to build something this ancient. "Look at these patterns," Dr. Kim said, running her hand along the wall. "See how they repeat? And these mathematical symbols carved into the stone? It's there, using the same number system that humans use for advanced calculations." Choi Daeho, who specialized in studying ancient tools and building methods, knelt down near the base of the wall. He had found something that made his hand shake as he carefully brushed away the dirt. "The tool marks in this stone," he said quietly. "They match human hand sizes exactly. Look at the grip patterns, the angle of the cuts. Whoever made these had hands just like ours?" The team worked in uncomfortable silence for the next few hours. Every new discovery made less sense than the last. The architecture followed design principles that seemed familiar but shouldn't exist in something so old. The mathematical constants carved into the walls were the same ones that human scientists used. Even the layout of the buildings reminded them of ancient human cities back on Earth. As the alien sun began to set, casting long purple shadows across the dig site, Park Gina made a discovery that would change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Deep inside what looked like a ceremonial chamber, she found a series of cave paintings on the walls. "Dr. Kim," she called out, her voice barely above a whisper, "you need to see this right now." The older woman hurried over, followed by the rest of the team. They all crowded around the wall where Gina was carefully cleaning away millions of years of dust and dirt. As the images became clear, a cold chill ran through each of them. The paintings showed figures that were clearly intelligent beings. They walked on 2 legs, had 2 arms, and most shocking of all, they had the exact body proportions of humans. The figures were shown building structures, using tools, and even what looked like primitive spaceships. "This is impossible," Professor Lee whispered, staring at the ancient artwork. "Humans have only been traveling in space for a few hundred years. We only discovered this planet last month." Dr. Shin Mai-rei, their language expert, was studying the symbols painted around the figures. Her translation computer was working frantically, trying to make sense of the ancient writing. "The linguistic patterns," she said, her voice shaking. "They're showing connections to Proto-Indo-European language structures. These symbols have roots that match ancient human languages." The team stood in stunned silence as the implications of their discovery sank in. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same impossible conclusion. The galaxy's oldest ruins, built by an unknown civilization millions of years before humans had even evolved, showed clear signs of human involvement. Dr. Kim looked around at her team, seeing her own confusion and fear reflected in their faces. "We need to contact the Galactic Archaeological Council immediately," she said, "and we need to dig deeper. Whatever secrets these ruins are hiding, we're going to find them." As night fell on the alien world, the team set up powerful lights around their excavation site. None of them would sleep well that night, knowing that everything they believed about human history and their place in the galaxy might be completely wrong. The research ship Meridian buzzed with activity as Dr. Kim Hanna and her team worked through the night. Nobody could sleep after what they had found in the ruins. The ship's main laboratory was filled with samples, photographs, and data that made no sense according to everything they knew about galactic history. Dr. Yoon Kungmin stood over a table covered with bone fragments they had carefully removed from burial sites within the ruins. His hands trembled as he compared the ancient remains to human skeletal data on his computer screen. "The bone density is identical to modern humans," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "The skull shape, the teeth, even the way the joints connect. If I didn't know these were 2.8 million years old, I would swear these came from people who died yesterday." Across the lab, Dr. Shin Murray worked frantically with her translation computers. She had been awake for 36 hours straight, trying to decode more of the symbols they had found carved into the walls of the ruins. Her eyes were red and tired, but she couldn't stop working. Every new translation brought more impossible results. "Professor Lee," she called out, excitement and fear mixing in her voice. "The language patterns keep matching ancient human linguistic structures. Look at this." She pointed to her screen where complex symbols were being broken down by the computer. "This word here translates to something very close to the ancient human word for home. And this symbol group means journey among stars in a language that's almost identical to Proto-Sanskrit." Professor Lee Min-ho walked over to look at her work, shaking his head in confusion. He had contacted the Galactic Archaeological Council 3 hours ago, but their response had only made the mystery deeper. The Cephrians, who were supposed to be the oldest space-traveling race in the galaxy, had no records of any civilization existing 2.8 million years ago. Even their oldest legends only went back 1.5 million years. Park Gina was examining photographs of the tool marks they had found throughout the ruins. She had spent years studying how different alien species made and used tools, but these marks were unlike anything in the galactic databases. "The cutting angles are all wrong for any known alien species," she explained to Choi Dae-ho, who was looking over her shoulder. "But they're perfect for human hands and human arm movements." "Eh?" Choi Dae-ho nodded grimly. He had been analyzing the construction techniques used to build the ruins, and every discovery pointed to the same impossible conclusion. "The way these stones were cut and placed," he said, "it matches construction methods that early human civilizations used on Earth, but these ruins were built millions of years before humans even existed on Earth." Dr. Kim Hanna stood in the center of the lab, surrounded by evidence that challenged everything she had learned in her years of studying alien archaeology. She picked up a small metal fragment that they had found buried deep in the ruins. Metal was unlike anything they had seen before, but the way it was shaped and worked reminded her of tools that ancient human blacksmiths might have made. "We need to go back to the planet," she announced to her team. "Need to dig deeper, find more evidence. Because right now everything we're finding suggests that humans were in this galaxy millions of years ago, which is completely impossible." The team prepared to return to the surface of Kepler-44 to see. But first, they had to deal with the growing attention their discovery was attracting. News of the ancient ruins had spread to other research teams and alien governments throughout the galaxy. Representatives from 12 different species had requested copies of their data, all trying to understand what these mysterious ruins might mean. Dr. Yoon Kungmin discovered something even more disturbing when he ran detailed genetic analysis on organic material found in the ruins. "The DNA fragments we've recovered," he told the team, "they're not complete enough to create a full genetic profile, but what we have matches human genetic markers. It's not similar to human DNA, but actually identical to patterns found in modern human populations." As they prepared to return to the ruins, Dr. Shin Murray made one final translation that sent chills through the entire team. Deep in the computer databases, she had found a symbol sequence that her programs had finally been able to decode completely. "This inscription," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, It translates to something like, "To those who come after us, children of Earth, remember what was lost so that it might be found again." The text specifically mentions Earth by name, using a word that's almost identical to how we say it in modern human languages. Professor Lee Min-ho looked around at his team, seeing the same mixture of excitement and terror in their faces that he felt in his own heart. "We're not just looking at the galaxy's oldest ruins," he said slowly. "We're looking at evidence that humans were here before, long before we ever left Earth the first time. But that means everything we know about human history is wrong." As the team prepared their equipment for another expedition to the planet's surface, each of them knew that they were about to uncover secrets that would change not just archaeology, but humanity's understanding of itself and its place in the universe. The sealed vault had been the most difficult part of the ruins to reach. Dr. Kim, Hannah and her team had spent 5 days carefully removing tons of fallen stone and debris that had blocked the entrance for millions of years. The ancient door was made of the same strange black material as the rest of the ruins, but it was covered with warning symbols that Dr. Shin Murray had translated as "sacred knowledge within, and only for those who remember." When the massive door finally opened with a deep grinding sound, cool air rushed out from the chamber beyond. The team's lights revealed a perfectly preserved room that looked like it had been sealed yesterday instead of millions of years ago. The walls were smooth and unmarked by time. In the center of the room stood a tall, crystal structure that pulsed with soft blue light. "The air is breathable," Dr. Yoon Kyung-min reported, checking his instruments. "And the temperature is exactly what humans find comfortable. It's like this room was designed for us." As the team stepped into the chamber, sensors in the walls detected their presence, and the crystal structure began to glow brighter. Suddenly, the room filled with three-dimensional images that appeared in the air around them like ghosts from the past. "Park." Gina gasped and stepped backward as human figures materialized in front of her. But these weren't primitive humans or early ancestors. These were people who looked exactly like modern humans, wearing clothes made from advanced materials and carrying devices that seemed to bend light and energy to their will. "This is impossible," Professor Lee Min-ho whispered, watching as the holographic humans moved around the room, talking and gesturing as if they were still alive. "These people look like they could walk down any street on Earth today." Recording system was more advanced than anything the team had ever seen. The images were so clear and detailed that they could see individual facial expressions and read the emotions in the ancient humans' eyes. Dr. Shin Murray's translation device worked frantically as voices from the past filled the chamber, speaking in languages that sounded almost familiar but were impossibly old. "They're calling this place New Terra Colony 7, Dr. Shin reported, her voice shaking with excitement and fear. "They're discussing mining operations on the third moon and planning to establish a research station in the asteroid belt. They're talking about space travel like it's as normal as taking a walk." The holographic records showed scenes that defied everything the team thought they knew about human history. Massive ships that dwarfed anything in the current galactic fleet moved between stars with ease. Cities floated in space, their surfaces covered with gardens and towers that reached toward the heavens. Humans worked alongside incredible machines that seemed to think and act on their own. Choi Dae-ho stared at images of construction projects that made the current galactic engineering marvels look like children's toys. "Look at the size of those space stations," he said in amazement. "They're building artificial worlds, entire planets designed for human habitation." But it was Dr. Yoon Kyung-min who discovered the most shocking revelation of all. As he accessed the technical data streams that accompanied the holographic records, his face went pale with disbelief. "According to these records," he said, his voice barely audible, "Earth isn't humanity's homeworld. It's listed here as Genetic Preservation Project 7, a world they were terraforming to preserve human genetic diversity." The implications hit the team like a physical blow. Dr. Kim Hannah sank into a chair that had been built for humans millions of years ago, trying to process what she was hearing. "You're saying that humans didn't evolve on Earth? That we came from somewhere else, originally?" The holographic records continued to play, showing more impossible scenes. humans commanding fleets of ships that could travel between galaxies, scientists working with energy sources that current human technology couldn't even detect. Entire planets being transformed to support human life with machines that worked faster than anything in the current. Galactic database. Dr. Shin Murray found records that mention dozens of human colonies spread across the galaxy, each one specialized for different purposes. Some were industrial worlds where humans built the incredible machines they used. Others were agricultural planets that fed the vast human population. Still others were research centers where human scientists studied the fundamental forces of the universe. This recording is from their central database, she explained to the team. They had colonies on over 3,000 worlds across the galaxy. Earth was just one small project among many, designed to preserve human biology in case something happened to the main population centers. Park Gina discovered files that showed the advanced humans had been working with other alien species as well, but not as equals. The humans were clearly the dominant force in the galaxy, with technology so advanced that other species looked to them for guidance and protection. We weren't the newcomers to galactic civilization, Professor Lee Minho said slowly, as the full truth began to sink in. We were the original galactic civilization. Humans ruled the galaxy millions of years ago, and somehow we lost it all. Holographic records continued to play, showing scenes of human achievement that surpassed anything in current galactic society. But the team noticed something troubling in the later recordings, signs of worry and fear in the faces of the ancient humans, as if some great disaster was approaching. The holographic records from the deeper archives painted a picture that made Dr. Kim Hanna's heart ache with sadness. As the team accessed more files from the Crystal database, they began to understand why humanity's great galactic empire had disappeared from history. The first signs of trouble appeared in records dated roughly 2.85 million years ago. Kyungmin watched in horror as the holographic displays showed entire star systems becoming unstable. Suns that had burned steadily for billions of years suddenly began to flicker and die, destroying the planets that orbited them. Look at this astronomical data, he said, pointing to charts that filled the air around them. 17 core human worlds lost in just 50 years. Our suns went supernova or collapsed into black holes. The humans in these records don't understand why it was happening. The holographic humans in the recordings looked confused and frightened as they tried to deal with disasters that seemed to strike without warning. Entire colonies had to be evacuated as their star systems became dangerous. Millions of humans fled from worlds their families had called home for thousands of years. But the stellar disasters were only the beginning of humanity's troubles. Dr. Shin Murray discovered records of wars that raged across multiple galaxies. The holographic battle scenes showed technology that seemed like magic, but also revealed an enemy that the ancient humans had feared enough to destroy most references to them. They deliberately erased information about their enemies, she explained. To the team, I can find references to the Dark Fleet and those who consume worlds. But almost all specific data has been deleted from the archives. Whatever they were fighting, the ancient humans were terrified that future generations might accidentally contact them. Park Gina found recordings of human generals and scientists arguing about military strategy. The debates were heated and desperate, showing people who knew they were losing a war they didn't fully understand. Advanced human weapons that could destroy entire planets were being used regularly. But still, the enemy kept advancing. The war lasted for over 200 years. Park Gina reported, studying the timeline data. Human colonies were being destroyed, faster than they could be rebuilt. Look at this population data. Humanity went from controlling 3,000 worlds to fewer than 50 in just 2 centuries. Choi Dae-ho discovered the most heartbreaking records of all. Deep in the archives were personal messages from human families torn apart by the disasters. Parents saying goodbye to children they would never see again. Scientists destroying their life's work to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. Entire communities choosing to die rather than face capture. But it was Professor Lee Min-ho who found the records that explained what had happened to Earth as he accessed the final archives. His face filled with a mixture of sadness and amazement. The retreat to Earth wasn't an accident, he announced to his team. It was the most desperate plan in human history. The holographic records showed the last great human fleet gathering around a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. Had been chosen as humanity's final refuge because it was far from the main battle zones and had been successfully terraformed to support human life. But the plan was more complex and heartbreaking than anyone could have imagined. Dr. Yoon Kung-min watched in stunned silence as the records showed human scientists deliberately destroying their own technology. Ships that could travel between galaxies were burned. Databases containing millions of years of knowledge were erased. Weapons that could reshape reality itself were dismantled and scattered. They called it the Great Regression, Dr. Shin Mi-rae said, translating the ancient text that accompanied the images. The surviving humans made a terrible choice. They decided to give up everything they had achieved to ensure that humanity would survive, even if they had to start over from nothing. The final recordings were the most difficult to watch. The holographic images showed the last advanced humans, preparing to become primitives. They were taking medicines that would make them forget their technology and their history. They were destroying their cities and scattering into small groups that would have to rediscover fire and agriculture. They didn't just retreat to Earth, Dr. Kim Hannah realized, her voice filled with emotion. They chose to become cave dwellers. They gave up their entire civilization to save the human species. The records showed human geneticists carefully seeding Earth with populations from different worlds, ensuring that genetic diversity would be preserved even as knowledge was lost. They planted clues and artifacts that future humans might someday find, hoping that their descendants would eventually reach for the stars again. Choi Dae-ho found the final message in the archives, recorded by the last leader of the human galactic government. The holographic figure looked tired and sad, but also hopeful as he spoke directly to the crystal that would preserve his words for millions of years. To our children who will come after us, the ancient human leader said, we have chosen to forget so that you might live to remember. We have sacrificed our achievements so that you might achieve even greater things. Earth will be your new beginning, and someday you will reclaim the stars that were once ours. The team stood in silence as the holographic recording ended. Finally, understanding the true cost of their survival and the incredible sacrifice their ancestors had made to give humanity a future, 6 months after the discovery on Kepler 4.4c, the galaxy had changed forever. Dr. Kim Hannah stood before the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history. Representatives from over 200 worlds who had come to hear the truth about humanity's origins. The great assembly hall on the neutral world of Concordia buzzed with conversations in dozens of languages. But all eyes were focused on the small human woman who had uncovered the galaxy's greatest secret. For millions of years, your species have wondered about the ancients, Dr. Kim began, her voice carried by translators to every corner of the vast chamber. You built monuments to them, studied their ruins, and tried to understand their incredible technology. Today, I can tell you who they were. The ancients were us. They were humans. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Who had spent centuries studying the mysterious ruins scattered across the galaxy, now understood that they had been examining humanity's own forgotten heritage. The Zephyrians, who had considered themselves the galaxy's eldest species, sat in stunned silence as they realized they were actually among the youngest civilizations in known space. Back on Earth, the discovery had triggered the greatest expansion of human space exploration in history. Professor Lee Min-ho now led expeditions to 47 different worlds where ancient human ruins had been hiding in plain sight. Each new site revealed more pieces of humanity's lost golden age, and more importantly, technology that could help current human civilization leap forward by thousands of years. Dr. Yoon Kung-min had become the director of the Human Heritage Recovery Project, coordinating efforts to understand and safely use the advanced technology found in the ruins. The genetic memories are real, he explained to a gathering of human scientists and government leaders. Our rapid advancement in space travel, our natural ability to adapt to different worlds, even our instinctive understanding of certain technologies. It's all because our ancestors' knowledge is still buried deep in our DNA. The implications were staggering. Human children were showing remarkable aptitude for understanding technology that had been recovered from the ruins. Engineering students were designing machines that shouldn't have been possible with current knowledge. Scientists were making breakthrough discoveries by following hunches that seemed to come from nowhere. Park Gina, now one of the galaxy's most famous archaeologists, stood in the reconstructed command center of an ancient human battleship they had discovered orbiting a dead star. The ship's systems had recognized her genetic signature and activated. For the first time in millions of years, the ship's computer is teaching me to fly it, she reported to her team, her voice filled with wonder. It's like it remembers that humans are supposed to know how to do this. Across the galaxy, other human teams were making similar discoveries. Ancient human factories were coming back online, producing materials that current science couldn't explain. Terraforming machines buried on dead worlds were reactivating, slowly bringing planets back to life. Defensive systems that had been dormant for eons were powering up to protect human colonies from the same threats that had destroyed. The first human empire, Dr. Shin Murray, had spent months translating the vast libraries of knowledge hidden in ruins throughout the galaxy. Each translation revealed new sciences, new technologies, and new understanding of humanity's true capabilities. We're not learning new things, she realized. We're remembering things we used to know. The alien species of the galaxy were struggling to adjust to this new reality. Species that had seen humans as primitive newcomers now found themselves dealing with a race that was rapidly reaching technology far beyond anything they possessed. Some alien governments were frightened by humanity's sudden advancement, while others sought to form new alliances with the descendants of the galaxy's former rulers. Choi Daeho made perhaps the most important discovery of all when he found a completely intact human research station hidden in an asteroid field. The station's databases contained detailed records of the enemy that had destroyed the first human empire, along with warnings about their eventual return. They're still out there, he reported to the Human Defense Council. Our ancestors' enemies are still somewhere in the dark between galaxies, and they might come back someday. But humanity was no longer the primitive species that had barely reached the stars. The knowledge recovered from the ruins was transforming human civilization at an incredible pace. New ships were being built using ancient human designs. Weapons that could protect entire star systems were being constructed on hidden worlds. Most importantly, humans were learning to work together in ways they never had before, united by the knowledge of what their species had once achieved and what they might achieve again. Dr. Kim Hanna returned to the ruins on Kepler-4 to see one final time, standing in the chamber where the truth had first been revealed. The holographic projectors were still active, showing scenes of humanity's first golden age. But now, she understood that those images weren't just history, they were a preview of humanity's future. Earth wasn't our beginning, she said to the ancient hologram of the human leader who had sacrificed everything to save his species. It was our second chance. This time we'll be ready for whatever comes from the dark. The galaxy's oldest ruins had revealed their greatest secret. Humanity had come home to reclaim their inheritance among the stars, and the second human empire would be greater than the first.